Okay, we're continuing. This is part 4 of quotes of Bertrand Russell. This will be the last part for Bertrand Russell. Okay, here he's going to say, what is the purpose of philosophy? He says, the value of philosophy is sought largely in its very uncertainty. He who has no tincture of philosophy goes through life imprisoned in the prejudices derived from common sense, from the habitual beliefs of his age, and from convictions which he has grown up with in his mind, without the cooperation or consent of his deliberate reason. As soon as we begin to philosophize, on the contrary, we find that even the most everyday things lead to problems, which only incomplete answers can be given. Philosophy, though unable to tell us with certainty what is the true answer to the doubts it raises, it is able to suggest many possibilities, which enlarges our thoughts and frees them from custom. So yeah, the average person, they really don't think much. They just say, this is what you do. This is normal. This is what everyone does. Everybody wears deodorant, so you wear deodorant. Okay, but to wear deodorant means it's stupid, okay? So when you start thinking, you say, what is the best thing to do? Why am I doing this? So it's good to have the ability to philosophize. And what it kind of comes down to in this quote here is you should question things. And everything in your daily routine. Is this the best use of my time? Is this in my best interest? Okay. Russell continues, the fact that an opinion has been widely held is no evidence whatsoever that it is not utterly absurd. Indeed, in view of the silliness of the majority of mankind, a widespread belief is more likely to be foolish than sensible. That is true. Okay. Most of the things that we do in society, they're designed to control basically people with IQs of 100 or less, okay? And it's basically for managing them as farm animals. So all of these standard policies are mostly for the management of farm animals, the belief that humans are farm animals, okay? Like the public schools, they're not made to educate you. They're made to prevent you from ever developing intellectually, okay? So you have to start thinking that way if you want to, be intelligent, be ahead of the curve. All right, skepticism is the most effective stance humans can adapt with regard to any kind of knowledge. Another merit of the home is that it preserves the diversity between individuals. If we were all alike, it might be convenient for the bureaucrat and the statistician, but it would be very dull, and it would lead to a very unprogressive society. Yep. The greatest challenge to any thinker is stating the problem in a way that will allow a solution. Philosophy begins in ancient Greece with Thales. Okay, that's the Ionian school of Greek philosophy where new ideas were encouraged. The Greeks kind of came out of nowhere. If you study some ancient history, you'll see it was very backwards and brutal, almost always some evil tyrant just saying, do what I say or I'll kick your butt. And the ancient Greeks all of a sudden came out of nowhere. They taught themselves how to do philosophy, how to reason, how to think, how to be intellectually sophisticated, started theater, drama, you name it. History, everything we think of as modern intelligence, it sort of came from the ancient Greeks practically, almost every single thing. You'd be amazed. All definite knowledge belongs to science. All dogma belongs to religion. Philosophy is a no man's land between science and religion. Okay, now that's a BS quote. There's a lot more truth in religion than you would think, okay? And science is mostly sophisticated lying. I tell you that having spent my life in science, okay? Ever since I was 18 years old, I've been a dedicated student of what one would call science. And I can tell you, most of what is taught in biology is not true. Most of what is taught in medical schools is not true, okay? It might be true if it's irrelevant, like the names of the muscles in the forearm. They'll tell you the true names of the muscles in the forearm. But when you study things that matter, what is the cause of diabetes, obesity, hypertension, coronary artery disease, autoimmune disease, what you will be taught in medical school would be completely untrue. I say that based on deep knowledge of the situation. To understand an age, you must understand its philosophy. To understand its philosophy, we must, at least in part, be philosophers. Okay, so a little bit of philosophy is good in the sense, be skeptical, question things, okay? But the people who major in philosophy, they're usually phony dopes. They're usually people who just like to play games with words, but they really don't know anything, and they're not interested in real philosophy. They're just looking for a place to hide. I can get a job as a professor in philosophy, make $100,000 a year. I'll take it. What could be easier than that? Okay, Pythagoras is the beginning of mathematics. Pythagorean theorem. He figured out the octaves. Okay, the Greeks just were amazing, and like almost anything you can think of. Euclid for geometry, Archimedes inventing an early form of calculus and engineering. Bertrand Russell, the Romans did not create any new art forms. In comparison with the ancient Greeks, the Romans were stupid and brutal. Yeah, that's the truth about ancient Rome. Ancient Rome was sort of Eastern. And when I say Eastern, I mean that in an insulting bad way. When you think of the word Eastern, you think of collectivist. Like, look at Europe and Russia. Russia's a third world crap hole because it's collectivist. Okay, once you go collectivist, you take away the incentive of the individual to do anything useful. And everything runs based on brutal force, okay? Versus the West, you think of, freedom to speak. Even though it isn't complete free speech, at least there's some. There's next to none in most places, okay? All right, the Romans admired Greek culture and they wholly adopted it. And then here's my quote. We're lucky the Macedonians and Alexander the Great and the Romans so admired Greek culture, they preserved it, and they spread it all over the place. Okay, more quotes from Bertrand Russell. We believe first and foremost in what makes us feel that we are fine fellows. Yeah, everybody believes that their own country is the best and the way their country does things is the best. That's normal to think that way. Okay, he says, regular people are roused to fury by departure from convention, largely because they see it as an insult to themselves. Like I had an internal medicine doctor. He's like, Pete, do you think we're stupid? Do you think we don't know anything? And I'm like, well, the truth is you really don't know. You don't know the diseases you treat all day long, internal medicine. You don't, despite treating it every single day of your life, you don't understand hypertension, you don't understand diabetes, you don't understand coronary disease. I've read your books. They're a joke. They're an embarrassment. Okay, but because you don't read anything else, you don't know. That was like my conversation. He got super offended. I'm just like, sorry, excuse me, but you guys are, playing a game of low IQ dumb shits, okay? Your books are wrong. Conventional medicine is a lie. It's just a fact for all the common Western diseases. It's just a fact. And it's easily, you can confirm what I'm saying in 1 week of serious reading. You'd see it. Holy shit. Everything I'm saying is backed up by tons and tons of papers. Okay, so he says if you want to talk to people who are kind of conventional, try to be humorous and be indirect so they don't think you're criticizing them. Ayn Rand described Bertrand Russell as the David Hume of his time. Yeah, he's a BS artist, okay? He's the kind of guy who, plays word games. And anybody who speaks out against Christianity is really, they're kidding themselves, okay? Where does everything come from? It comes from the Catholic Church, The ancient stuff all comes from the ancient Greeks. The modern stuff, most of the good stuff, comes indirectly or directly from the Catholic Church. That's a fact. Study it. You'll see that for yourself. The modern scientific method comes from the Catholic Church. The guys who led up to the Renaissance were like the scholastics, Thomas Aquinas, Albert the Great, Charlemagne, Abelard the Aristotelian. All right. Bertrand Russell continues. The free intellect is the chief engine of human progress. Okay, here's a quote I meant to put earlier from Kurt Gödel. A proof for any system can only be carried out by inferences that are not in the system. Yep, so you have to make some inferences. Okay, now he's talking about the development of genius. Something of a hermit's temper is an essential element in many forms of excellence, since it enables men to resist the lure of popularity and to pursue important work, in spite of general indifference or hostility, and arrive at an opinion that is opposed to prevalent errors. Yeah, so that's what I said. I think like people with IQs over 150, academic IQs over 150 like myself, you should not go into conventional medicine because you get constantly hassled. I can't tell you how many times I've been hassled for just not being stupid, okay, just for reading the literature and knowing the truth. In conventional medicine, it's about selling drugs. It's not about understanding the truth. It's not about helping the stupid patients. The patients are considered talking monkeys. It runs on atheistic Darwinism. Somebody comes in with a Christian worldview, let's help these poor, pathetic people, let's empower them, teaching them about nutrition. They'd be like, shut up, you're not generating your billing codes for the day. Do what you're told, generate your billing codes, or you're out of here. Okay? Okay, and Bertrand Russell continues. He says the fundamental concept in social science is power, in the same sense that energy is the fundamental concept in physics. The power over the human body is by force. The power of reward and punishment is economic power. Propaganda power is the power to persuade. I think that these are the three main types of power, and those are big time power, okay? But there's other types of power. The ability to heal somebody, the ability to console somebody, the ability to give somebody a job, to hire them. That's kind of economic power. The ability to persuade people. That's sort of a personal power. To seduce somebody, to love them, to feed them. Okay, those are all things, but they're trying to control the food supply too. The framing of a hypothesis is the most difficult and important part of scientific discovery. If you have a good scientific imagination, you can think of all sorts of things that might be true, and that's the essence of science. You first must think of what might be true, then you look to see if it is. That's actually a good statement. Like Cassandra, I am doomed to prophesy evil and not be believed. Yeah, the average pro nowadays still doesn't even understand what's happening. So obvious. The 11th commandment should be kind. Yeah, and then the 12th should be follow the truth. Well, he's a liar. Bertrand Russell's a liar and a hypocrite. You know, Christ had already said, be nice to each other, okay? Forgive each other. Give each other the benefit of the doubt. That what you do to the least of my brethren, you do unto me. So he pretends to be nice, and what does he talk about? Mandatory sterilization, okay? And he wants to abolish Christianity, okay? So he's a hypocrite. He's a BS artist, okay? He's a smart one, though. And in general, that's what I've sort of seen. The billionaire perverts, they're real smart themselves, and they hire a bunch of people that are real smart. They hire like the best psychologists in the world and say, how can we trick the proles into destroying themselves? And then the proles are happy to do it. They're so stupid. Okay, Bertrand Russell. If a man is offered a fact which goes against his instincts, he will scrutinize it closely. And unless the evidence is overwhelming, he will refuse to believe it. If, on the other hand, he is offered something which affords a reason for acting in accordance with his instincts, he will accept it even on the slightest evidence. All right, so the next one is sort of a philosophical quote, how he sees himself, Bertrand Russell. An inner voice speaks with an absolute authority that no vain words can diminish, bidding us to follow truth though he slay us, though he blast the lives that we love, though he wither the flowers of joy and dry up his parched breath, the pleasant springs of happiness. In his service is courage. In his service only can the soul grow great. In his service only the shining lights are kindled on the mountaintop, by which far off in the plain humanity is guided in the night of fear and perplexity. Alone the priest of truth lives in the service of the generations to come, and keeps ever bright the sacred flame. Pity he may feel for those who dwell below, but fellowship only in the mystic communion of those who create and tend the lights which illumine the world. So that was sort of a sophisticated, flowery, philosophical quote where he basically pretending that he's a defender of truth. He's not. He's a promoter of poop control, if you know what I'm saying. Anyways, I hope you found that helpful.